Re-F starting life in a different world. Translated by Ramen Water. Performed by Nostalgia. Chapter 1. 2 months. Part 2.
Kararagi city-state's second town, Banan, the next largest town after Kyo. The first town, located west of Kararagi. That is where Subaru and Rem, the Natsukis, live. The streets are made up of waffle architecture, which is culture characteristic of Kararagi, and it seems it is deemed the cradle of the waffle style, which spreaded all over Kararagi. But, well, to Subaru, waffle architecture was something that didn't really make him feel like he was in a different world at all, because the streets didn't make him feel like it was a different world, but rather, it feels like the Edo period, or going back a bit forward, the Meiji era and Taisho era. As Subaru coughed, he saw buildings constructed with wood lined up nicely. Waffle architecture, which stood on the streets, was also characteristic of the stores with open doors. People walking down the road were wearing zorises and kimonos, which were wasu, but they were all true different world people. Among those that had hair color and looks that differed from Subaru's common knowledge, there were a lot of dummy humans representing beasts. Japanese culture that forced itself into another world. Subaru had that impression of Kararagi costumes, including the Kararagi dialect that sounded just like the Kansai dialect. It's like people in a fantasy cosplaying. Well, the material is nice so it looks good on everyone, and it all comes together perfectly. It is very common for manga and games to have countries with Japanese culture and fantasy worlds in the first place. The problem was that it still felt weird actually confronting the scene, and it felt like that for longer than he'd expected. It was a feeling that Subaru finally took in after about a year. That being said, he still had doubts, even if he gulped down the weird feelings. He couldn't believe that Kararagi's culture uniquely developed from zero. This culture had to have started spreading with people who came from the same place as Subaru. In other words, people who came from a different world like Subaru and that steel helmet guy. Just stop. Deal with the more realistic problems in front of you. Even if you solve the world's mysteries, you still don't have a job. I'm saying this to myself. Talk about depressing. How much was this world's history influenced by people who came from the same place as Subaru? He should worry about that when he had more room to think and live. He'd put it off for now. Right now he had to focus on job hunting, and he had until dinner for that. It's already afternoon, so I actually don't have much time. Anyway, first I'll go to the Public Employment Security Office and... What's wrong, Susan? You're walking with a serious look. What a scared face. Don't be so rude about people's serious looks. Someone made a rude point about Subaru's face as he frowned and walked around town. Once Subaru turned around to see whose voice it was, he saw a tall man right beside him. He'd seen his face before. With that dog face? You must be Hellson. Don't startle me. A dog face? Don't put it that way. I'm a wolf of dogs. The one who opened his mouth and laughed at Subaru's words was a dummy human with a wolf face, not a dog face. He was a tall one with black hair and black kimono, and he bit on a golden kisuru with his back teeth. A lot of ordinary dogs were petite, and he had the credibility to call himself a wolf as he was one head taller than Subaru. However, his eyes were always narrow slits, and so if we're talking about dogs, he looked more like a fox rather than a wolf. The name of the wolf he called Halson was Halibel. He was Subaru and Rem's neighbor of the housing complex tenement house they lived at, and you could say that he was the first acquaintance they made at Banan. You look like you want to say, if you're not a dog, then you're a fox. Susan, you just don't know when to stop, do you? Don't make complaints based off people's looks. I really was thinking that, though. I'm neither a kobold nor a fox. I'm a wolf. We are a rare species on the verge of extinction, so don't make that mistake. It kinda feels like I'm carrying the pride of our kind, you know? If you're going to carry it, do it a little more seriously. You obviously want to choose someone that could at least carry the pride. As for Subaru, pride, or at the very least, the wolf's title, who were on the verge of extinction wasn't something he'd leave in the hands of Halibel. He may be taking care of them, but that didn't mean he'd immediately trust him. I can't chat with you right now. I'm burning with the will to work. Don't get in my way. Come on, Susan, that sure is a cold way to greet me. I'm really depressed, so stop it. Besides, even if you're burning with the will to work, you don't have a job. It's just cinders. I'm also really depressed, so can you not? Subaru's neighbor's counterattack makes his voice crack. Halibel shook the Kizaru in his mouth up and down. After that, as he exhaled smoke that entered his lungs, he said, "Go ahead and get more and more depressed. A man that troubles such a good wife is hopeless. How brave of her to not complain once, even though her husband has no job and indulging himself in drinking. I feel bad for Rem-chan. I don't indulge myself in drinking, but it hurts how that's the only thing I can deny. To tell you the truth, I've been troubling Rem. I really can't compete with her." Subaru dropped his shoulders dejectedly as his current worthlessness was pointed out objectively. Halibel went har 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 at Subaru happily while he was like that. "Did you just come here to make fun of me, or did you come here to cheer me up? We're both jobless, and I thought we could have a pity party or something." "No way! It would be too much to have a pity party with another employed person right after I became a gigolo." Subaru shakes off Halibel, who came closer to him, and he full on rejects being treated as his partner. Besides, strictly speaking, Halibel wasn't jobless. This glib-talking neighbor was a tenement house manager. Whether he was actually doing manager-like work or not, he had the title of a manager as a vocational worker, although he had ever seen him napping, grooming, drinking, or using his Kizaru. He was employed. Basically, Hal's son is dazzling being out of my reach. Don't say something sad. We can be friends. It's true that I can get money just by lying down all day and playing with the fry spots of my kimono. But putting that aside, I think it's precious how Susan is working hard to earn money, you know? Isn't it just lovely? Shut up, you slacker! Actually, who did you go to become a manager? Sorry to disappoint, but I just happened to be acquaintance with the owner of the tenement house. With that connection, I was able to be a couch potato. Sorry, Susan, I'm a winner. Damn you. Subaru hisses without hiding his anger as he listened to his shaky story. In the end, personal connections meant everything in an environment where even academic backgrounds were useless. And Subaru didn't have any personal connections, even if you were to disregard the fact that he was from a different world. A man that traveled two worlds and failed to create relationships, that was Natsuki Subaru. Struggling alone, and to top it off, jobless. Looks like I'll just have to wait for my death. You have Rem-chan. Struggling alone is an exaggeration. Halibel suddenly opens his large mouth widely, and he burst into laughter as he looked up at the sky. Subaru, seeing that dog face in the corner of his eye, sighed deeply. Look, you know my situation. I'll be going job hunting. My goal is disposable income of 15,000. And the condition is that I pay for traveling expenses and put it into pension and insurance. I don't have actual work experience, but how do you come up with that condition? I thought I'd go for a dream that was just barely realistic, and I want to apply this condition to the common knowledge here and find out the minimal requirements for landing a job. Freeing himself from being supported by Rem was his biggest goal at the moment. However, he wanted to avoid temporary measures, such as choosing jobs that won't last long, and dead-end ones. Subaru's goal was to get a job he could do for his whole life, one that he could be proud of as a family head. And so, I came to the Public Employment Security Office.
Outside the Banan town areas, at a place away from the crowded driving street, there was a store. It was the employment agency, which Subaru called a Public Employment Security Office. It was a place that acted as the bridge for interpersonal relationships with things like job arrangements and introduction letters for people. There were several employment agencies in Banan, but but Subaru always used the same one. Because of that, he was friends with the shop owner. It's dimwit. The moment he showed up at the reception desk, the man in the shop suddenly welcomed him harshly. That's one rude way to greet a client, and you shouldn't use such a cruel nickname. You're the one that's rude. You screwed up at the goods carrying scene, didn't you? I was told to never refer such a good for nothing. The foreman told me to take care on the way home. I didn't want to know about this side of him. Subaru collapsed as he was called incompetent, and a lizard-faced man is what appeared before him. He was a lizard man. Lizards weren't rare dummy-humans, but he was so fat that he had a strangely large wig, and so he looked more like a frog rather than a toad. It was characteristic of him to wear a cute apron. Klein Donahue was his name, and he was the owner of this employment agency, officially recognized by the town. Employment agencies officially recognized by the town were scarce, and it was known as consensuous work. However, the man that was supposed to be consensuous looked down on Subaru in an annoyed way as he said, "How do you mess up at carrying goods? You're going to become a job hopper at this rate." Well, you see, I was totally focused on trying to do as much work as others, and daily allowance have fixed rates. You could have made profit by sitting back and letting everyone else do the work. That would be unfair. I don't really want to do something unfair. Why are you so insistent? I don't care if you do a good job, good grief. Subaru grumbled to protest, and Klein folds his crest. Then he suddenly noticed someone standing behind Subaru. "Oh, it's Halibel. Sorry for not contacting you for quite a while." "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry. I just came to check on Susan's future." Future. Well, anyway. Subaru cleans off his knees, stands up, and compared Klein and Halibel. After that, he pointed at Halibel and tilted his head at Klein. "You know this playboy?" Playboy. Why does it have such a lovely ring to it? From now on, I'll be calling myself the internal playboy. Does it sound good? Does it sound bad? What's bad is that you actually like it. While Subaru joked at Halibel's name sense, he waited for Klein's reply. Seeing that exchange, Klein groans as he folded his big arms. Dimwit. I mean, Mr. Subaru, you made it big. I knew you could do it. You can't just violently change the way you treat someone. Well, of course I'm going to use Mr. Who do you think Mr. Halibel is? With a look of shock and fear, Klein stopped when he was about to say something. Subaru raised an eyebrow at the unnatural reaction, but Klein went while looking away as he said, Mr. Halibel is, an internal playboy. He got that name just a second ago. Anyway, moving on. So what's the matter? I can refer Mr. Subaru, but don't ask for a relaxing gravy train, alright? The goods carrying one was your best shot. It doesn't have to be a relaxing gravy train. I just want you to refer me to a job with a future. The conditions are negotiable. But please, give me one for a family head. That's the first time I've been given the condition one for a family head. But Klein briefly scanned the shop as he puzzled over Subaru's request. It was an employment agency approved by the town, but the store itself was neatly taken care of. The one-floor wooden shop had minimal chairs and tables, and the bulletin board wall was filled with help-wanted advertisements and wanted people forms. People searching for jobs would select a job from the posters, and the people who wanted a job done would ask Klein, and he'd put up a form. That was the sort of system it had. If I accept examining a dragon and fail, your reputation would be damaged as the one who got me the job. I would never ask you to do that, and I'd leave the country once something like dragon examination was announced. If it was an empire, I'd examinate a dragon with pleasure. If you have a good plan to kill it, you might even defeat the kingdom's god dragon. Then you could take the country and... Oh, Klein! That's it! Let me check out that Zaristia bad search. Subaru's voice interrupts Halibel, who lit his Kisaru and puffed it. Subaru approaches the wall dramatically, and once he tore off the poster, he read the contents aloud. Let's see. Recruiting investigators for the bad of the Great Spirit Zaristia, the habitat of the Great Spirit that has been a mystery for many years. The time has come to recruit members to explore it. Working conditions are negotiable, and the reward depends on results. This doesn't sound good at all. Why are you talking so loudly to yourself? Also, I'll be putting that back. Give it here. When Subaru's eyes turned lifeless from the absurdity of the recruitment details, Klein confiscated the poster. Then, when he looked at the details, he groaned an "oh" as he said, "Oh, I forgot to take this off. Applications closed quite a while ago. It's just a crappy recruitment form I left on there just because I was told to do so. Just forget about it." Did it actually happen? There are a lot more idiots in the world than you think. Subaru felt depressed when he heard Klein reply as he shrugged. Involving yourself with great spirits would be nothing but a suicidal act. Just normally coming in contact with them would be reckless in itself. I just hope that those daredevils died peacefully. That was Klein's misinterpretation of Subaru's facial expression. And when he touched his own apron, he said, "I now know that you're so cornered that you'd jump at a job that's pretty much suicide. So, I really don't know if I should give you this." "So you're saying you have a job that's better than pretty much suicide?" "It depends. But well, you have to work for your cute wife." Klein took out an application as if to say to him, "This is all I can do for you now." Subaru nervously accepts what he held out to him, and he looks at the application details. "A maid at Riften Maguchi's place?" "It's a short-term job that lasts for 1 month. You'll be doing subordinate work, but Mr. Subaru has the skills, so..." Saying that, Klein shows off his apron as he pinched it. The apron was way too cute for a giant like him, but the flower pattern on it was what emphasized that impression in particular. An old fart with a lizard face may be wearing it, but it looks great. "You put it on yourself. My wife really liked it, though." "That's just because I was sewing buttons back on. How's that related to this?" Take a good look at the guidelines. It says that it's a workplace with a lot of women. Good thing you have a special skill to attract women. You're just jumping to conclusions. Besides, I am more worried about the point, only taking young men at a workplace with lots of women. He could not figure out what went on over there. According to the description, he just knew that it was subordinate work, sorts of chores. They weren't looking for special qualifications and inhumane manual labor. If only he didn't refuse being a manservant. Thanks. But would I even stop being a day laborer with this? As if you can find a lifetime job out there so conveniently. Listen up. First, you gotta start from the bottom. Get your face and name out there, and then you'll find your favorite after earning trust. Don't you know that? You referred Rem to a job at Temple Elementary School at the start. Well, that's because Rem-chan is cute. It was an irrefutable argument. You could not argue against Rem's cuteness. Stuff like Subaru's poor excuses weren't effective in society. Kararagi isn't nice enough to recognize an unemployed man as a full-fledged man. I came here to look for a job, didn't I? He came to the Public Employment Security Office and was being treated coldly because he was an employee. This was proof that despite having the will to work, he was lacking the most important thing: trust from society. That being said, Klein's judgment was fair. Subaru dropped his shoulders in defeat. "Please make me a letter of introduction. I will do my best to be liked." "Yup, do your best. Mr. Efton is a brave dealer, but he's known to be a calm person." "Brave warrior?" "Brave dealer." Subaru tilted his head at the slight difference in nuance. But Klein wasn't concerned about that as he finished writing the letter of introduction fluently, carefully put it into an envelope, and gave it to Subaru. "On the morning of the day after today, go to Mr. Refton and tell him that you came from me." "Okay,
thanks as always. And lastly, be careful. Sheesh. Don't mess up this time.
He puts the letter of introduction in his pocket and left as he waved goodbye to Klein, who went back inside the shop. Then he went back to the main street with Halibel, who had been smoking his Kisuru at the street.
But damn, Halson sure has a lot of free time.
Why say that all of a sudden? It looks like you're jobless, gazing absent-mindedly at other people job hunting.
That's too awful. When there's someone below you, you cheer them on, right? I'm the group that gives you courage. Courage isn't what I'm getting from this.
It's more like something dark, I think. Subaru replies to Halibel cracking jokes, and he sighs, although Halibel still was actually the employed person here, and so Subaru was the one who had a low position in society. Still, you're having quite some trouble with job hunting. What did you do before coming to this town? Halibel's casual questioning makes Subaru hold his breath for a moment. However, he quickly smiles to hide his hesitation and he shrugs as he went, well, I moved from place to place in Kararagi with Rem. I'm glad we settled down in this town. It's all thanks to you that we were able to rent our tenement house. You're a lifesaver. About that, you should thank Elder instead, the one who referred you. Connections are a way of life. If you're blessed with them, that shows you have something to offer. About that, I don't contribute much at all. It's all thanks to Rem. Subaru replies as he thought, that's the only thing I'm 100% sure about. And he stretches lightly in the crowd, as he was temporarily relieved of the burden he had thanks to getting a job. Moving from place to place in Kararagi, eh? Thank you for sticking up with me until the end of this video. Please like and subscribe. Part 3 is coming soon. Just stay tuned. I'll see you next in another video.